Well, hello again. It is us. It is we. Welcome back to this week's shenanigans of the Athletics LLC. We hope everybody had an absolutely wonderful Christmas. I believe everybody on the screen did. Is that correct? I mean, the governor is still basking in the waves of the beach. We see he is throwing that in everybody's faces with his screensaver there. So we
Oh,
can't wait till you get back to Texas and you're freezing. We won't feel bad for you at all, sir. I can promise you that. Since you got to be flexing every week since you've been down
oh,
in the motherland. But we welcome everybody back. We hope again everybody had a wonderful Christmas, and we're going to jump right in, and we're going to share with you some comments that Coach Chip Kelly from UCLA made, and then we're going to expunge or expand on that once we listen to it a little bit.
Issue that you might have right now, whether it be realignment, NIL, transfer portal, and what would your plan maybe be to try to solve it?
I think they're all a problem, and I think we need to have a conference commissioner. I think football should be separate from the other sports. Just the fact that our school is leaving to go to the Big Ten in football, our softball team should be playing Arizona in softball. Our basketball team should be playing Arizona in basketball. But because football left, and they're saying, well, how do you do that? Well, Notre Dame's independent in football, and they're in a conference and everything else. I think we should all be independent in football. And you can have a 64-team conference that's in the Power Five, and you can have a 64-team conference in the Group of Five, and we separate it, and we play each other. You can have the West Coast teams, and then every year we play 7 games against the West Coast teams, and then we play the East. So we play Syracuse, Boston College, Pitt, West Virginia, Virginia. Then the next year you play against the South while you still play your 7 teams. You can play a 7-game schedule. You can play 4 against another conference, another division opponent, and you can always play against one Mountain West team every year so that we can still keep those rivalries going. Not that I've really thought about this. Not that I've a lot of time on this. But I think if you went together collectively as a group and said there's 132 teams and we all share the same TV contract, so that the Mountain West doesn't have one and the Sun Belt doesn't have another and SEC has one and they have another, that we all go together, that's a lot of games. And there's a lot of people in the TV world that would go through it. You can sponsor each one. Instead of calling it Group of Five and Power Five, you can call it Amazon, Nike, bid that out to things. You do a lot of different things. But I think if we still do the same thing and take all that money, and I would do this, and I think this needs to be done, that money now needs to be shared with the student athletes, and there needs to be revenue sharing. The players should get paid, and you can get rid of NLI, and the schools should be paying the players because the players are what the product is. And the fact that they don't get paid is really the biggest travesty. Not that I've thought about it.
Wow. Man said a bunch, didn't he? He said several mouthfuls, did he not?
Like a Viking sword because it looks so massive compared to my.
So we need. There you go. Thank you, KOP, for your technology. But I know, like I'm not going to start this, but we're going to let the resident guru on these such a things, the EP himself. I have no idea what your name says. This I don't have my glasses on again, so we're gonna let the EP start this one off because I know he has a lot to say about this.
My name says, "Say what you mean and mean what you say."
Oh boy, and so it begins.
First off, I wouldn't be me if I didn't point out the fact that Chip Kelly can't do math because 64 and 64 is not 132. But we'll go on from there. I think conceptually it is a great idea. There are as many holes in it as Swiss cheese, but that's what people want you to do, right? They want you to just dismiss what he said because of the holes in it. That's stupid, right? Like the framework of it is exactly where we should start, and you should throw that up against the wall and then fill in the holes so that it all makes sense. But at the end of the day, you have to figure out what the actual numbers are for, we'll call it the top group and the second group. I definitely think I hope I'm not stealing this from Clyde, but I definitely think if this ever does happen, relegation has to happen. Like you acted that has to be fluid, because otherwise, like, why would we do this?
Mm-hmm.
But I think that the biggest takeaway I get from all of that is 128 schools being pitched to all of the television and streaming outlets as one unified group,
Mm-hmm.
right? With different pay scales. Like that's what it was supposed to be. See, this is where it helps to be old. That is what it was supposed to be originally.
Mm-hmm.
And, first off, they couldn't get, I think the two they couldn't get originally was Notre Dame and Miami. I think they were the only independents of the TV markets, but then Miami couldn't get their own one and ended up. But Notre Dame, as most people know, had their own TV deal with NBC for the better part of like 40 years.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like there's no question that part is the easy part, right? Like it would be way more revenue if NBC, CBS, ESPN, whoever it is, had to buy it all. And you couldn't just buy like your special packages, right? You have to buy it all. I think that the concept of every team on your campus being in the same conference is also an archaic one, because there's a great number of examples that we could go on and on for where that just doesn't happen. So that like the whole idea that just because football leaves the Pac-12 and goes to the Big Ten, like I agree. The rest of the teams that don't have the travel budgets to do that shouldn't be forced to do that,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because we all know like that greatly affects track. It greatly affects the non-revenue, like the non-revenue ball sports like baseball. Because when you are in Los Angeles and you have to go play Maryland and you have to go play Rutgers, right? Like what are we doing? Right? And you have to play Penn State. And let me just tell you, even on a charter flight, I'm not trying to go from LA to State College.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I don't even know what that looks like. I just know that will not ever remotely be easy. So I don't want to steal it all, but I'll just say my blanket answer is, yeah, I think the framework of it is good, and I think we should go from there.
Big League, what do you have for us?
I agree. I think it's a great structure to build. And that's why you have boards and committees and focus groups who fill in those blanks, who troubleshoot the things that the naysayers will say to you. And some of them are meant to be resolved and some of them are not meant to be resolved. Like we can't just create problem before the problem happens. I thought that I think it was a very bold statement of him to say like this rids NIL. He said NLI, but NIL is what I assume he was talking about. But I think the notion is great. I think because we already opened that Pandora's box of the Alston money and NIL and whatever else is coming down those funnels, I don't know that you can unsell that at this point. But if you propose something that's as bulletproof as what it is right now, I think it'd be great. I do think it's a good idea. I know that, with our smaller sports, with this already happens. Beach volleyball wasn't a part of the Big 12 until this year. You've got, at our institution, we've got rifle and equestrian. I know those aren't Big 12 sports. So just saying.
Right.
So it's definitely doable, and obviously it's on a larger scale, but I think it's meant to happen. I know at the high school level, they do this already. In California, De La Salle, Mater Dei were independent.
Okay.
And so it's something
like IMG is like that way in Florida.
Like IMG,
exactly.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Beach Governor, what you got?
Aqua Beach Governor, baby. So much to unpack from that clip. Essentially, what he is talking about, and this is interestingly enough, what he's talking about is why the Pac-12 doesn't exist now. And what I mean by that is they could not get the 10 schools. Was it 10 schools? 12.
Originally 10 and then 12.
10. So 10 schools could not come together and agree to what was it? I think it was 30 million that they were being offered as far as their, and they couldn't agree to it, right? Well, in this case, Chip Kelly is saying, well, we need 128 schools to agree to a price. And you have one tier and you have another tier, right? And everybody wins. And it sounds real Disneyland-ish, but we all know that greed is greed. We all know that, all it would take is for one or two schools to say, no, I don't want to do this, and it wouldn't happen. All that being said, the picture that he paints is a very logical one for the way that collegiate football is going. And if you're just focusing on the football part, they're already eons and miles away and miles ahead of every other sport. And they're literally pushing the envelope as we speak. So I think we are going to be headed in this direction. I don't know if it'll be 5 years, 10 years from now, but there are a lot of schools doing feasibility studies right now on how they're going to be playing in their new conferences. And I think at some point you would hope like some logic steps into the picture. I love the fact that he mentioned that UCLA softball. Like, come on, are we serious? Like, how? How do you put together that schedule and keep playing that schedule over and over and over again? Look, I even heard, and I would have to verify this, I read it somewhere, that they did their feasibility studies on what it would take to play in the Big Ten. And even with the big jump in the money they would get from the Big Ten, they would damn near come out even. Even with the amount of travel that each team would have to do, with the amount of, logistics issues that they would have. So again, is it just the fact that, we're moving to another league, we're going to be getting this bigger budget, we're going to have more to offer to our athletes, all of this, I get that. But man, outside of football, and let's just say basketball, it's going to be rough.
All right. Last but certainly not least, the KOP himself.
I almost feel like I need notes. First, let me say, full disclosure, I've always been a fan of Chip Kelly, and I am also a fan of big ideas. Everybody knows I'm a fan of logic. But I also have a very sinister side of this. And so I guess I'll start with the comments made by others. I disagree completely that these particular realignments have anything to do with what I'm going to call independent Olympic sports like track and field. The track teams and their schedules are not going to change at all. UCLA and USC are not going to all of a sudden be flying out to the Midwest every week to race people out there. That's not going to happen. They're going to fly out one time a year for the Big Ten championships indoor and one time a year for the Big Ten championships outdoor, AKA no significant changes whatsoever. I imagine gymnastics will be somewhere in that same boat kind of thing. The ball sports, sure. You could argue that it's going to cost them more time and some travel dollars. I don't, and I'm happy to be proven wrong about this. I just don't believe in the whole the sky is falling, blah, blah, blah. It's going to be too expensive because honestly, I think all of these schools and their budgets, I think they cry poor way more often than is the reality. That's just me. Now, as the baby is planning to attack me in this room, I'm totally down with the reality that I think his premise originally is brilliant. Everybody come to the table as one big unit. You're definitely going to extract more money and a more fair outline of that. I 100% agree that if it turns into two pockets of 68, that you got to figure out, if you care about fairness, and let's not pretend like anybody does because they don't, that there has to be some kind of relegation where you can play shitty and fall into the bottom tier every year. Totally down for that. Oh my God, would I love that. But here's the biggest fallacy and the biggest sinister point that I have with all of this. What he didn't say, he said all the right things. What he didn't say, and what no one is really talking about in the theory of this idea being true, is that this would require the split off isn't about football. I mean, it is about football, but the split off is about decapitating football from Title IX regulations. And if you do that, now women's sports are actually in a very dangerous position.
Are you saying that they'd be, because the fact that
They
they'd
want to be
funded from an
independent.
outside source?
Correct. Because
Oh,
if they are independent that way, they are also a private entity,
got it.
like the NFL is. And then therefore, the money that football generates and the rules that football plays under, well, as a private entity, as a private business, all of a sudden, all the teeth that balance out the dynamic of Title IX in college athletics would go away.
But isn't that where the regulation that the EP talked about comes into play?
No,
Yes.
no. When we're talking about regulation,
be,
we're talking about regulate. We're talking about if your team plays shitty, you go from the P5 to the G5.
no, I'm talking about but I'm talking about the regulation of this would have to be there as well. Because this would have to be regulated and stated, because if not, it is a problem for the
Yeah.
female sports.
Yes,
You're right.
but the idea,
The two cannot be connected. Like they
Right,
would have
right.
to be two totally separate entities.
correct,
Football
Right.
and everything else.
right, and
Right.
so what Kelly is talking about is the break off and independence and privatization
Right.
of football,
Football.
which
Yes.
would leave everybody else on the women's side in a very dangerous, precarious position. And for that reason, I ain't trying to hear this nonsense. But it's a great idea. And yes, the players should be paid and all these other things. But anything that goes into this space that doesn't bring that ends up with a segregation, privatization, does not play well for Title IX, and therefore I would be holistically against it.
See, I'm not sure that it can't be done without the privatization of it. I think it can be. I think it can be done within the rules that we exist in now. It's just football is not separate from the rest of the NCAA, let's say, for lack of a better term. They're just grouped differently.
Yeah.
Right? No different than we talked about earlier. So if we're just talking about taking football, giving it the P5s and the group of fives within the same rules, then the money that's trickled down from there trickles down to everybody, then it works.
Sure, but even in his statement, he's obviously alluding to a world where it doesn't trickle down to everybody else, because when he says the players need to be paid from the revenue streaming of the TV, that ain't got nothing to do with anybody else.
That's but still, like, it's not like the players are only ones getting money. The universities are still going to get paid as well.
Sure. And he
right.
said,
and so, but let's be real. Also, like, it's no different than I'm like, my floor now. You had your chance. I'm just telling you my feelings, okay? And my feelings, and my opinion, if you do it that way, and the universities are still getting money, like they are now, because there's still a percentage of money that goes to football and everybody else. It's still going to be the same deal, and that's the money that'll be used to run the other sports. That's just my opinion. Okay, I think it can be done that way. I think that. My question was, should basketball be done the same way? That's my question. Does the NIL go away, or does it now get shifted to some of the other sports?
That's the other fallacy. That's the other fallacy.
Right. Well, I'm not saying that's a question.
NIL is never going away. You might be in a position where you get Congress, which is laughable, but you get Congress to agree on some regulations and put some rules around it, but it's never going away. It's
I mean,
never
listen,
So I think that in the end of the day, what has to happen here, the regulation of such an idea would be the total piece of it. Congress is going to have to get involved, because if not, it becomes a wild, wild west in a lot of ways. But I think that the basic concept of it, playing regional games, of now you can't go play the weak sisters of the poor, in the middle of the season to get your rest, right? You're required to play people within your league. That's old school big boy football. You lined up against people that were just like you, and you do that. So I'm all for that idea. I'm all for the idea of the competitive side of it. The more regional games, I think that from a television aspect, that gives the television folks a lot of options. They're gonna have to go out and find some more cameramen and announcers. So it's gonna be it would be interesting from where I sit anyway. So
there will be
great.
football on all 7 days of the week.
Yep.
Exactly. Which in a lot of ways isn't a bad thing, because it's on like 4 or 5 days a week now, so it's not that big of a deal. So it's not a huge change. All right. Well, great points by everybody. Lively discussion. Good job, Chip, for lobbing that up there for us. So another lively topic. So Noah Lyles has recently stated that he would like to do the quadruple at this year's next year's Paris Games, the 1-2 4x1 and 4x4. So what do you guys think about this, and what do you think he needs to do to merit running on the 4x4? As there's a lot of other guys out there, Fred Curley, Michael Norman. If he decides to do the 1-2, there's some guys with a much deeper pedigree at the 400 than Noah. What do you think about what he needs to do to get on the 4x4? And I'm gonna start ladies first this time. Big League, what you got for us?
So I'm all about the team concept, and I can appreciate those words that he said out loud. But you're no longer on a team per se. You're on Team Noah. You have to not be self-centered and want it all. That's what I read. I read self-centeredness. There's, to me, and I explain this to the athletes, and I explain this to my own biological children. There's a difference between selfish and self-centered. You can be selfish, and that's okay, because you should want to do things that are for you, and make it so that you are your priority. But when we make the world about us, there's a kabillion other human beings out there, not in track and field. But so to say that he thinks that he can help Team USA get the gold in the 4x1, the 4x4, and still get the gold in the 1 and the 2, because to me, that's what he said. Like, I'm still going to win all of my events, and we're going to win the 4x1 and the 4x4. What's going to give? Something's going to give. So my 2 cents. And I don't think there is anything that he can do, to me, because that's my thought, to merit that move.
Okay. KOP, what you got?
Yeah. Again, big fan of Noah Lyles. I love that he said it. But again, I'm here to pick apart words. That's my theme for the day, I guess. Chewy is right. His desire to do so is all about him and his legacy. And I'm not about to sit here and cast aspersions on him being conscious of himself and his legacy. You only have a short period of time to capitalize. This is his biggest moment. Throw it out there. Now, I laughed when I heard help Team USA win. We don't need any help to win the 4x4. We don't need any help from Noah Lyles to win the 4x4. So having everybody understand that, let's be clear, what would he have to do to earn his position, earn consideration in that? He needs to go to a legitimate meet or two and prove that he can run 44 low in the 400 in the open 400. Or get himself in one of the relay competitions that are legitimate and go out there and split 43 seconds. If I see that and somebody's, unavailable or looking tired or, questionable at the end of the show, I got no problem with sticking Noah in there if you need that to as an option. But if he ain't gonna go out there and show me a 44-2, 44-3 capability, why are we discussing this? Because we got a whole bunch of people that can handle that job.
Okay. Governor?
So I'm going to take it one step further. And you really need to listen to what he said. Because after what I did at Budapest and seeing what my body can handle, if I train for it, okay, let's take a shot. It's the last race.
That's right.
It's the last race.
That's right.
There's nothing to lose. If I'm in shape for it and I've trained for it all year, sure, let's take a crack at it. So, okay, think
That's
about what he just said. He is saying that if he's ready for it, if he trains for it, then he's going to get a spot in the final.
That's right.
He's
Ain't
not
nobody trying to run in the
running.
prelim.
He's not running in the prelim.
Ain't nobody trying to run in the prelim.
Okay. He is saying that if he's ready and he trains for it, he will be available to run on that 4x. Okay. Let's
That's right.
and Sir Lucius, okay? The 4x4 for the men's US team is, I mean, I don't like, if you've got gold, then you've got titanium. Like, you've got platinum. Like, this is a position that very few individuals ever get a chance to run on. It is a position that's earned. It's a position that, look, man, I mean, and there is a difference, obviously, right now between the men and the women. Okay, let's call it what it is. But that is a very, very coveted spot.
Mm-hmm.
So this reeks of, and Chu alluded to this earlier, this reeks of, I'm Noah Lyles, right? I'm going to try and win the quadruple, right? And USA Track and Field, if you're listening, if I'm available, I want to run it. Let's go. All right. The last time we saw anything like this, the last time we saw anything like this, I mean, what are we talking about? Marion, we're talking about Flojo. I mean, I'm trying to go back in history where, you know, like, I'm talking about running the final.
Allison did it.
Yes. Okay. But Allison Felix had already proven herself as a 400-meter runner. She's proven to be one of the greatest ever.
She was a world medalist at the time.
Absolutely. If I'm going back, Gabby Thomas shows up at the Texas meet and drops a 49. Right? It was a message being sent. Hey, I'm here, you know, and, you know, but that's what it turned out to be. Just a message to USA Track and Field that I do have this capability. And if you need me,
and they played Gabby out of a mixed relay spot.
yeah.
Let's not start that, please. Behave yourself. Behave yourself. Okay.
So
Governor, please finish up.
I say that you know, if you read his statement, that sort of thing, like, it is purely self-serving.
Okay. All right. Can you unmute yourself to say what you mean and mean what you say?
Yeah, I just didn't want any external noise to ruin you guys' wonderful commentary. Probably external noises of me just clearing my throat and wanting to throw up and lots of other nonsense. So, all right, let's. I'm not going to go around the block, but let's start with this. There was this thing on the internet where all these dudes were trying to come at Brian Scalabrine because he's like the worst dude in the NBA and he's absolute trash, right? And then Scalabrine played the dude, whoever it was, and he beat him like 12-0. And he's done that for every single one of these internet buffoons that have tried to come at him for like 6 years in a row. Why do I say this? Noah Lyles is so delusional to think that he would be a viable option for the 4x4, even in holocaustal times on the relay, right? Like, let's take all of the quarter miles. Let's just, like, seriously, because like that's what would have to happen, right? Let's take all of the alternates that we already take, and none of them can run, and somebody's hurt or whatever, right? Well, we got a 110 hurdler that split 43. We got another 200-meter guy that split 43. We got a 1-2 guy that's run 43, run 44. Like, how far?
So he's run 43. He's run 43.
Yes. Right. So how far down this list do we have to go before we get to the guy that ran 47 seconds last year at Florida Relays?
Mm-hmm.
Like, look, I'm not clowning Noah. I love Noah, but I'm going to say it because nobody else will say it to him. Bro, I think he's delusional if he thinks he's going to make the one team.
Oof.
And I said it.
Oof.
In the 2024 Olympic year, I don't think that the 1-2 double is going to happen, let alone the 1-2 4x1 4x4. We are way ahead of ourselves. I'm not saying he's not talented enough.
You are officially a meme.
Listen, make me a meme. Make me a meme.
Absolutely. You are this week's meme, brother.
Listen, I'm okay with it.
No doubt. Wow.
Listen, I wish him the very best.
Trayvon,
because I'm
that and send it to Noah.
Listen, I'm a huge fan of Noah Lyles. I just listen. First of all, the 1-2 double in the United States has rarely been done. Let's start there, right? Secondly, and like way more importantly, because I'm old, the only non-quarter miler that I can think of that has run on a men's 4x4 at a global top competition was Alan Johnson, who split 45 flat and then basically passed out on the infield afterwards. And that was because we literally had 3 people get hurt.
Yes.
At the meet.
Right? At the meet.
And they couldn't get people to come in. You're right.
In Athens. This was Athens, right?
Yeah. So the thought that prior to the Olympic trials, we're going to consider a predominantly 200-meter specialist as a leg in the final of the men's 4x4 is maybe the most ridiculous thought that anybody has come up with in the last 50 years. Everybody else who we've talked about, you guys all said it. They were all females. Because the women's quarter in the United States and the men's quarter in the United States are 2 completely different animals.
Yes.
Right.
I mean, if we're going to call it what it is, right, the women's 400 hurdles probably is a better pool of quarter milers than the women's quarter milers.
All right,
AOP
man.
has been saying that for 2 years
The hot
now.
pepper flakes. You're sprinkling the hot pepper flakes on now.
So all I'm saying, look, to bring it to a fine point is this. Listen, I am here for all of Noah Lyles's bravado. It's honestly, it's great for the sport. I sent a thing to all you guys. Is like, Noah Lyles, his pull-up gear. I think there's a thing that we really should have in track, right? Like, I would love to see how folks come to the track meet and then do the rating of like who did it best for the week. Like, I'm here for that. He brings a lot of things from other sports to our sport that are awesome. But this is now the second global self-serving thing he has said / done, right? The first one was he took on the NBA and challenging the idea that they are world champions. And the second one is the ridiculous thought that anybody is going to allow this man to be locked into a spot in the final of the men's 4x4 over a laundry list of quarter milers. It's just insane. It's just insane.
Yeah, okay. You're a meme, and we're just gonna get ready for that.
Why am I a meme?
You're a screenshot. Look, I'm just warning you because, like, to tell the man that he's not gonna make the team in the 100 when he just won the double at the World Championships.
How many teams has he made in the 100?
Hold on a second. I'm not getting into this with you.
He's made one team in the 100, and all of a sudden we're anointing this man on the 100 team.
Nobody's anointing anybody. Nobody's anointing anybody. Don't put me in that. Okay. As I was saying, you're a meme. And so my comments on this is that there's a lot of really good 400-meter men in America.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of really good 400 hurdlers that can split 43, right?
Yep.
So there's a lot of guys you got to get through. And see, my bottom line statement is this is not the women. So you
Not at
can
all.
go to a meet and run 44-3. Guess what? Nobody cares because there's going to be 8 other guys that do the same thing,
Yep.
right? So you don't have to worry about that, right? So I like the bravado. I like the fact that he's got, people, talking about this. But at the end of the day, no. Like, it's just like in my mind, there's nothing he can do short of showing up at the trials and running the 400, which I know he's not going to do. That's going to merit. If I'm the relay coach, anyway, saying I'm putting him on there for the final. Because I thank you for pointing that out, Governor. Because I didn't read it as deeply as you did.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, there's nothing he can do to merit being on there in the final. Nothing. No, there's nothing. I mean, like, there's just too many great quarter milers. We don't need Noah to win the 4x4. We need Allison. We needed Miriam. We needed Flojo. And Flojo, we still didn't win, right? So, and it was even a couple years where we didn't win
44
with
low
Allison.
with a 49 low.
Exactly. So at the end of the day, like, just apples and oranges here. Again, it's Noah. That's what he does. So we'll see if he trains for it. Let's see if he tries to do. But this would just be my advice: is you just came off a very magical year, young man. Be magical again. Let's perform that magic again and let the quarter milers do what they do, because I personally think he's going to make the team in 100. But we'll see. We'll see. Yeah. So, boy, we are on fire tonight. So let's heat things up a little bit more.
I was just going to say this comment section is going to be crazy this week.
Yes, it is. Okay. So what are our comments on the Carol Smith Gilbert statement from the convention, which I will read to you now? Okay. My last challenge is for all of us to hire more women's coaches and to develop them to coach their own event groups and for them to become head coaches. Because he's the most eloquent speaker I've ever met in my life, I'm going to let the governor from the beach take this one on first.
Oh, no disrespect.
Oh boy. I'm going to speak on this coming from the position of being a counselor to a couple of former athletes that have gone into coaching. Some at the Power 5 level, some at the non-Power 5 level. And, all of them have had a difficult road to get to where they're at now. The majority of them have not fulfilled what they set out to do, which is to get a full-time coaching position. Some have been disillusioned. Some have just gone ahead and quit. Some have become director of ops. They've done that for a few years, and one of the things that I stand on very, very strongly, and having volunteered for the better part of 6 years, is that I had to think long and hard about whether I wanted to do this. And I was very fortunate to have some very, very good people in very good positions that were able to show me how it's done. And they were able to give me leeway. And I use that word leeway. In a lot of respects, I did not take the traditional road. I was actually allowed to coach people along the way. I wasn't just sitting shotgun, but even then I still had to earn the right to be able to take on these individuals and to be able to, use my knowledge, and be able to coach. So when she makes a statement like this, sure, you can hire a female coach. Yes, absolutely. All right. But as a head coach, you have to make sure that you have the person, the person that can walk into a room or walk onto the track, command respect, be able to guide, be able to counsel, be able to take on all the responsibilities of a coach. And that takes time and it takes energy and it takes patience. And what I'm seeing in our sport and what I'm seeing, especially from the ground level up, is that fewer and fewer young men, and I'm going to put young men and young women in the same boat, are even willing to do it, are willing to go through that grinder, are willing to go through that process where, you know, you're getting to the end of the year and you're probably thinking, yeah, I'm doing well. And you sit down in that coach's office and the coach is like, all right, we need to discuss some things. We need to discuss, we need to really sit down and analyze this. And this is what you're going to need to do. And essentially for that person to tell you, you're not ready. You're not ready. And this is why, right? It's a very, I think in a lot of respects, it was a good thing for her to say. I think obviously we would love to have more females in our coaching profession. But I also feel like if there's a head coach making a decision, he has to pick the person that's most qualified and the person that most fits his or her philosophy. So, I'm going to applaud any female that decides to get into this profession. I'm here. I've always offered myself as a resource and all of that. I just think that it's pretty broad statement, and I still think that there's still an issue of who's the best person for your job.
KOP, what you got? Why you got a little break from the little guy?
Well, what I have at the moment is a head shaking, just punt by the governor on that one. I love him, but man, did he punt that one. All right. So here, as I've done all show, preface. Personally, I'm a big fan of Carol, and I'm happy that she is our president and her career has been phenomenal. I'll tell you two things about that statement. One, she's right. She's absolutely right. It was a righteous call to make. It was the right setting to make it. And the fact that she said something like that on that stage, she should be applauded for saying that. I'll tell you how it played in the room. Half of the room looked at each other and was like, but have you ever done that?
Mm.
And that's the issue. And that has been the conversation. And let's be clear, Carol's hired a lot of women over time, but it's not about hiring the women. She's speaking to the putting them in a position on your staff to have control, to have autonomy, and then pushing them up into the next echelon to where they can
So
become.
who are those people?
Well, no, I'm saying where they can.
So you're saying she hasn't? So she hasn't done that part.
I'm not saying. I'm saying that in the room, the general.
Are you punting now?
No, I'm saying that in the room, the general consensus at that moment was, bravo, but are you practicing what you're preaching? And I think that there is, as a person who hires people, as a person who's been in chairs before and is currently in one, there's a lot of unjust innuendo about the way a staff functions. And we always like to talk about, you're not in the huddle if you don't know the play and all this other stuff. So I'm certain that some people in the world believe that she has, and I know for a fact that a lot of people in the world believe that she has not. So for her to say that, I think it's the right message, but in the room, in the moment, it left a lot of people perplexed. And you saw some of that play out in social media, on Twitter, and well, there's other things. And I think that there's a space there to ask that question. But what do I think about the statement? I think it's correct, and I think that we all should be doing that. And I'm proud to say I'm a person who tries my best to do that and has been trying my best to do that over the course of my career. So I stand with her in that message and what it's supposed to be.
Okay. Chew, what you got?
Agreed. I think it's a great call to action. I think the words would be even louder or even more bold-faced if they saw that action from her with that correlated with that. I do kind of maybe growing the thought of what Clyde was saying is, and what the governor was saying. Yes, we want to hire females to have the autonomy, to have their event groups, to have the position. But if they're not qualified, then we don't want that to happen, because we don't want to elevate for elevating sakes. We don't want another, and I apologize for the reference, but another affirmative action type situation. One. So then it's the step below that is retaining the female person body in the sport. So how do we do that? And that's a whole nother can of worms. That's a whole different conversation, but it's retaining them beyond the athlete stance to make it so that they want to be the impression for the future student athletes. The call to action is 100% on. I agree. I think that as a person in her seat, it would be great to see her doing it as well. But I also support her if she were to say, I haven't had that person who is a female.
Right.
So I get that too.
Oh, say what you mean what you say. The floor is yours, sir.
All right. Well, I'm going to do the best I can to not start a fight with everyone. But I have promised myself I was going to be honest about things I feel about topics we talk about. So I feel like this. In a vacuum, that is an incredible and an incredibly presidential thing to say. Right? Like, we should all lose 10 pounds. Sure. I agree.
We make it 20?
Yeah, I mean,
Hey.
I'm not doing a good job of it at the moment.
I don't think any of us are. So.
Right?
And you are clearly not, because you're eating as we speak. So.
Right? And so what am I saying? It's this. I think the message is hopeful, profound, and there's nothing behind it. I think the messenger was holistically problematic, because when you have a history of not putting those people in positions of power yourself, you're calling yourself out as well. But listen, I want to choose positivity and go with the message. So for me, this is where I'm at. What I really feel like needs to happen is everyone, and that means way more men than women, because there are way more men who have in the past, are currently doing so, and who will in the future mentor females. But everyone, every coach that has gotten to a certain level should try and grab a young female who is either newly into the business or considering the business, and then be a legitimate mentor to them and help steer them into the business and let them understand that positions of power are earned. This is the best opportunity available right now, because we just got granted all of these new positions at the NCAA level. Staffs are not limited to just 6 paid positions, right?
Right.
But let me say this slowly and succinctly so everybody understands. The average track and field assistant coaching job is still under $50,000 a year. The average amount of time it will take you to get from one of those positions to the vaulted position that she is speaking of, that is, you are one of the top 6 and you have a group that you are going to be hired and fired about. The gap between these two jobs that we're talking about is probably no less than 4 or 5 years if you are lucky and you work really hard and you're really skilled. And the question is, are we willing to guide those people through the tough times of $38,000 a year to $70,000 a year?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And, young people are also you're in the just getting married or I want to get married phase, right? Like, let's talk about the difficulties of being married and being a coach. God only knows if you're married to a coach. I mean, listen, unless you are the Street Thompsons, I don't know who else is doing it anywhere near that well, where you're married and you work together, because I think we will all agree, like, that's really difficult to do.
Yes.
Right? It's really difficult to do, but it's even more difficult to even find a spot where you can do.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
So what am I saying? All I'm saying is it was a wonderful statement to make, but first of all, where is the clientele that she speaks of? Who are these female coaches that are being held back and not being given positions that they should have? I want to know who they are because I want to help them myself, being completely honest, right? But at the end of the day, I know what I'm never going to do. I know what nobody on this group of tiles is going to do, including the lone female. Not one of us is going to hire a person because they're a female, give them an event group to coach autonomously, and just take whatever results come. There's no chance of that because the head coach is responsible for everybody, right?
Every single person.
We're still talking about 1/6, and you're still talking about 16%, right?
He or she is responsible for themselves and their family.
Exactly. So now you're talking about giving somebody, we'll call it 17% of the power in your program to coach events. They had better be qualified if you hire them, whether they're males or females.
Absolutely.
And so where this whole thing drums up for me is we need a bigger base. In order to do what she's talking about, we need a bigger base of females to whom we can pick the best of those groups and elevate them, and do that at every level, right? Like, you can't just get a job, because that has happened. And look, let's be honest, that has happened. There have been females who have been promoted beyond their skill sets and left to fail. And that sends them back further, if you want my honest opinion, right? As a man of color, I was preached to from the very beginning. You have to be successful if you get in the big chair, because if you fail, that's 2 more of us they won't hire. I think that's equally true, if not more true, for females, right? If we give you the chair, right? If we give you the chair, first of all, there's 7 sexists that didn't want to give you the chair in the first place. So they're expecting you to fail. But if we give you the chair and you're not successful, that's at least 2 or 3 more females that got no shot at that school. So I love the statement. I just don't know who it is that she wants. There's so many holes in it. There's so many holes in it.
So this is what I'm gonna say. Like, I despise the statement. Absolutely despise the statement. So I'm not gonna punt. I'm just gonna be me, and I'm gonna put it right out there. See, I don't want anybody giving me anything because I'm Black. I don't want anybody giving me anything because I'm a male. I don't want anybody hiring Chu because she's a female. I look at this screen and I see people that grinded from the bottom to get where they are, myself included, right? So my challenge to Carol and anybody else that feels like this, okay, one, I want to see the list of people because I don't know who they are, because they're not out there, right? There's a bunch of females out there that are coaching their own groups and doing a good job, and bravo to them. And again, if you're going to stand up before the body and say this, then you need to be doing it yourself, and she's not. Point blank. In all the years I've known her for coaching, she's never done this. She's never had a person on her staff in total, complete control of a group that was a female. So you can't stand up and challenge the rest of us to do it when you're not doing it yourself. Okay. The other part of this for me is, see, I've helped. I've had several females come through this program as volunteers who are now coaching their own groups out in the NCAA track and field world, right? So if you want to help, then bring them in, give them the opportunity to learn and coach, and then then push them out into the world. You know, that's something Clyde has been on his soapbox board for years. Is if I've got assistant coach, my job is to elevate them. So invite people to come into your world, governor, as a volunteer. And we had this discussion. You're not to be here for more than 2 or 3 years. Even though I was still mad when you left, but anyway, that's a different story. you know, at the end of the day, if like, where's this group of people? Okay, we don't stand up before and ask us to give anybody anything. As a head coach at the University of Florida, my job is not to hire black, white, pink, purple, brown, male or females, to hire the best coach available. And I'm going to continue to do that. So if there are females out there, and I'm putting this out there, if there's females out there that need my help, pick up the phone, call me, email me. I'm not that hard to find. But at the end of the day, I don't accept the challenge of make more females because they're not out there. Okay, I in the last year and a half, I've gotten at least 30 people contact me about helping them in the profession, and every one of them has been a male. Every one of them.
I will
so
say,
the problem is, so when you're going to stand up and say that, then let's just help younger coaches get into the profession. Let's help younger coaches, like when I got the call to help Big League, when I got the call to help the governor, right? Mike Eskin, there's a bunch of people that came here. Holland Shear was a volunteer on our campus 3 years ago. Okay. So so Carol, anybody else out there, where's your tree? Where's your people you're putting out into the industry? So that's my challenge to everybody. Forget this about women. Okay. I'm 64 years old. I'm not going to be doing this a whole lot longer. So I want people who I can entrust this sport to. People that I know when I walk away from this, it's going to be in good hands. I don't care what color you are. I don't care what sex you are. I want good people in positions who can coach. So that's my soapbox moment. Yes, sir.
I will say this, since if I remember correctly, this particular year, I was the only one of us that was at the convention, right?
Yes.
Yes.
This year, more than any other year, it seemed that we have a new influx of female coaches.
Good.
Like, they were very prominent. They were moving around, lots of new faces, right? A lot of former athletes, right? Oh, my staff and a whole bunch of other staffs. Like,
but they have jobs already.
Right, but they have jobs already. And so to this point, on those campuses where these new coaches are, if they are doing a good job, if they are soaking up information, if they are learning the game and being given an opportunity to learn the game, not just hold stopwatches. Like, if they're being given real opportunities, I think that the premise of that statement will start to see in the next coming, 10 years or whatever. And to your point, if they're reputable and good at their job, I'm all for it.
Exactly.
Agreed.
Because you sit in the chair, right? And you just made a hire of a female, and the more people are going to say, well, that's because she's your life partner. No, that's because she's brilliant. Right? Because she knows what she's doing. Exactly. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But see, that's my issue here. Is like, I need people to understand, first of all, track and field is difficult, right? From a whole lot of areas, from the entry level pay salaries to the amount of hours. There are not a lot of women that want to do this because they want to have children. They want to have a life. And you don't have a great life if you're a track and field coach. You just don't, right? So at the end of the day, like, if there's people in the sport that want to get better, let's embrace them. Let's help them get better. But I read that statement and I somehow feel that we're being said that we're holding people back, that we're not hiring female coaches, that we're not trying to help elevate the females in the sport. And I just totally disagree with that. There's a lot of great women coaches out there, and they're doing a great job. But if you look at the staffs of most of the women coaches, the majority of their staffs are male, right?
And that's, and so
including
sure.
hers.
I mean, but you would agree that there have been coaches and a segment of our profession that do have gone out of their way to hold women back. I mean, that's a thing. Just like there's segments that have held back Black people, right?
Mhm.
So that exists. I mean,
Okay, I agree that that exists, but there's not this mass hysteria of this, right? See, so all I'm saying is this: I get her message. I think I understand where she's coming from. I think the message is bad because, in my opinion, if I'm standing up there, I want the message to be for us to protect our sport. I want the message to be that we want to make our sport continue to grow and qualify and continue to groom qualified coaches, Black, white, pink, purple, brown, male or female, who can continue to elevate the sport so it stays around. Because if we just start giving people jobs to give them jobs and put them in positions and they're not qualified, then you as the head coach are going to get fired, and that person is going to get fired.
oh,
That's just not how the world works. It's just not.
I wanted to add to this, like part of it, and you know, you always try to take what is said for face value and not take it personal. But I can't be the only person that feels like that message was meant for the men in the room.
Of course, it was meant for
that's how it played. That's how it
exactly.
played.
And that's how it's supposed to be played.
And my issue with that is like, look, maybe we're unicorns, but I know for a fact that all four men on this particular show have mentored and aided in the careers of female coaches.
Yes, I have. Yeah.
All four people, all four men on this group of tiles have done that. And I think if we tell the truth, there have been more men who have given females opportunities in this sport than there are women. I'm not trying to start a fight. I'm just trying to say, like, at the end of the day, like, listen, let's not be divisive in a sport that already divides us.
Exactly.
Right? Like, we males, females, blacks, whites need to understand that the sport is in a insanely pivotal spot. I said this to Sir Lucius about 2 weeks ago. We are about 4 years from what I think is going to become a coaching desert. I think by the time we get to 28, there are going to be more high-level athletes than there are high-level coaches who've actually had the experiences necessary to guide the high-level athletes to championships. Because if you look at the ages of the people who've coached medalists, and so on, there's a great number of those people that are going to leave the sport after 28. And so if we just look at that landscape and say, well, we got to get some younger people involved and in rooms so they can help going forward, it doesn't matter what gender they are, right? Yeah. Like we have an impending issue that has nothing to do with gender. And for my money, we just all need to grab someone young and mentor them in the sport.
And exactly. And that's not about, okay, so it's not just about giving a person a job. Okay. It's not about just saying, hey, go figure it out. Right. If you get somebody and you got it and you give them this opportunity, mentor them in the right space. And it's not just about the X's and O's. It's about where you're supposed to be and how you're supposed to be and doing all the right things involved to be a great coach. Because coaching is more than X and O's, right? You know, like I said, we have mentored over 20 people that have come through this program that are now at the NCAA level, over 20 of them, right? And everybody, when the first time they sit down and Governor, you got this speech. This is more than about X's and O's. This is about the inner workings of a program that keeps it at a high level.
Absolutely.
Right? You know, so my thing is this, okay? My challenge to everybody out there is this. Grab somebody, okay? Male or female, teach them how to do it right, okay? If you want to be a coach of a medalist, call somebody who's done it. Stop trying to reinvent the wheel, right? Right? Stop thinking because you've had one or two people run fast that you now know everything about track and field. Because I can tell you right now, I learn something new about track and field every day. Because it's ever evolving, because every athlete's different. So to wrap all this up and put a bow on it, at the end of the day, look, I want women elevated in the sport like every other sport, but I want quality people. And if there's quality women out there that need to have their own groups, let me know. Send them to Gainesville, let them volunteer, we'll help them out. We will do that. But we need to stop this rhetoric of just give somebody a group and elevate them to be head coaches. Okay, because first of all, I don't hire head coaches. So that message needs to go to the ADs. That ain't on me. Right? That ain't on me. I'm going to stop because I think I've said enough. I think I have. And now it's question and answer session with who? The one and only do what you say and say as you do, right?
Oh, it's the EP?
Yeah.
Isn't it DP? Oh, absolutely.
That's what it said in the show notes.
Wow.
No, I don't read those.
Yes.
I mean,
you know,
I think the whole world now has been clarified that you do not ever read the show notes.
Yeah, even sometimes when we do the pre-show notes, he doesn't hear those either. All righty. So we ready there, sir?
Yes, sir.
All right. What's your favorite TV show?
Chicago PD.
Wow. Okay.
Like ever?
Favorite?
That I thought he meant now.
No. Look. You behave. KOP. That's his
Whatever
answer.
you hear.
I thought he meant now. I didn't think he
Look.
meant
So
ever.
and so then there's your right answer. Your favorite TV show is Chicago PD. Okay. Favorite track announcer, in-venue announcer, and television announcer.
In venue is Bob. He's the only American who I think has done in venue International Olympics. I can't think of his last name.
Okay.
But every one of you would recognize his
What meet is he famous for in the American circuit?
I mean, he's done the trials a few times. But before Gary started kind of taking over there, I can't remember his name. I'll remember it.
Okay. So television.
It's hard to have a different answer than Otto.
Okay.
I mean, he's just. I mean, like, I'm not trying to be funny. He's just so good.
Okay. Your favorite music genre?
I mean, I want to lie and say it's something else, but it is absolutely, positively, without question, hip hop. I was born in New York in 19.
Start right there.
Because I don't want to be stereotypical, but dude, I was born in Brooklyn, New York in 1970. Like, it has to be hip hop.
Okay. What was your favorite track to compete on?
Weird. Tad Gormley Stadium.
Okay. Who is your hero?
My grandfather, who unfortunately is deceased.
Okay. What's a good spy code name for you?
Probably something along the lines of like Black Shark or Squeaky Weasel or something crazy like that.
Oh dear. What's your
It would be
talent?
something dark and aggressive, for sure.
What's your hidden talent? We're not going into this. Not doing it. What's your hidden talent?
I can draw a little bit.
Okay. Finish the phrase. The way to my heart is. You fall asleep?
I know.
No. I'm trying to give honest answers. The weight of my heart is probably through my loved ones. If you're kind to my loved ones, you probably get a pass from me.
Okay. Would you rather travel to the past or the future?
So you asked this question last week, and I was befuddled then. I think
Obviously wasn't in the future.
I think I have settled on the past.
Okay.
I guess I feel like I can maybe appreciate the past more. The future is so unknown. Like, just I have no idea what that is.
Okay.
But yeah.
All right, this one's for everybody. What's your favorite Christmas movie? We will start with you, sir.
This Christmas.
Okay. Beach Governor?
Man, Elf cracks me up still.
Okay. Big League?
Dang it. You too.
You can choose the same one. You don't have to choose something different.
Both of them.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
KOP?
It's either Love Actually or Die Hard.
Oh man, Love
Or
Actually.
what? What was the second one?
Or Die Hard.
Okay. Yeah, I thought that's what
Opposite
he said.
ends of the spectrum.
Don't invest in that nonsense.
Is Die Hard a Christmas movie?
For the record, Die Hard is a Christmas movie, but still.
Okay. So I think mine is this Christmas as well. So yeah.
This Christmas is
all this Christmas and Almost Christmas are probably my two favorites. So.
We this is a fun thing to do, but we watch Polar Express this Christmas, Elf 4 Christmases every single Christmas.
Wow.
Not necessarily on Christmas Day, but in the Christmas time.
And on that note, we're going to bring it into this week's shenanigans. We hope you guys enjoyed your time with us this week. Hope that your holidays continue to be merry and bright and all that good stuff. And we will see you guys again in 7 days. Be good.
Say bye, Kai. Bye, Kai.
What a great note to end on.